Today we're going to make some Lemboglossum Orchid and see how pretty this flower is. You can make this in several different colors as well. So it looks like a zebra, almost like a zebra orchid, and they come in sprays like this, kind of like an oncidium orchid. We're going to do the throat, or the upper part of the throat, and I'm just using a really tiny gum paste, white gum paste, and from the smallest part of my ruler, this is, I believe, the second to the smallest, or maybe the third. Okay, so the third to the smallest, which is really small. And I'm going to make that into a long teardrop. As you can see, it fits right on my forefinger, right there. And I'll take my tool that's shaped like a foot, my Dresden tool, and a number 30 floral wire. You can use number 28, I guess. That will be okay too. And I don't even need to hook that up, the tip up. I'm just going to brush it a little bit with gum glue, wipe off the excess, and thread that in to the thin part. Oops, this is unraveling. The thin part of my gum paste. Okay. And then I'll take that Dresden tool and press it underneath so it kind of curves a little bit. And then I'll just let this one dry. So you see how there's that small incision at the back of the throat. And this is actually slightly curved. Just slightly curved. So I'm just going to let this dry on a piece of foam. And then for the throat, I'm going to take a piece of purple gum paste. And roll it just like how you would roll a petal, where one side would be thicker than the rest, because I need to thread that with my floral wire. And with my throat cutter, which comes in the Lemboglossum cutter set, I'm going to cut. And then with an angled tweezer, I'm going to tweeze that 2 lines in the middle part. Okay. Then I'll take that, put it on my foam pad, and I'm using the small ball tool and just basically cupping that, both of that side on. You don't really need to cup the top portion, because that's where you thread your floral wire. And again, I'm not going to hook this. I'm just going to wet it with my number 30, with my gum glue, sorry, and then just thread it in. already. And then with my needle tool, I'm just going to frill these edges, and I'm going to lift this up a little bit so you can see. Put that on the edge of my foam pad, and with my needle tool at a 45-degree angle, I'll just go and rock back and forth to frill those edges. And normally I would do this on the edge of my table, but so that you can see exactly what I'm doing, I'm just doing it like this. Because when you do this at the edge of the table, if you see how I did a Cattleya, you will see that I do that at the edge of the table. That way my hand is free to move and it's not restricted with a table. And as you can see, I'm also not filling it with the point of my needle tool right on the gum face, because that will create holes on your gum paste, and it's not gonna get curly. It will tear your gum paste. And I'm just rocking my needle tool back and forth so you have that curly effect on the throat. Okay, and I'm just going to take my ball tool and straighten it up a little bit so it's not too close. So that's how my throat looks like. And then I'll take a little bit of yellow gum paste. This is a tiny, again, a really tiny piece. And I would say that this is the second to the smallest on my ruler measurement ruler, and I'm just going to make it into a very small teardrop, really tiny, almost like a grain of rice. And I'll take a little bit of my gum glue, spread some on the top part, and put that right in the middle, right there. Take your needle tool and basically split that in half. Alright, and so I'm just going to let it dry like this. I'm going to put that on a piece of foam and let it dry like that, and that will be the throat, part of the throat of your Lemboglossum Orchid. And then for the petals, so I'm just taking a really small piece of yellow gum paste. I'm going to roll that into a flat surface with one side of it thicker than the rest, because I'm going to insert wire on it. And if you have the Sailcraft groove board, you can use that. However, I really don't like that thing that runs on the bottom or the back of my petal. If you have the Petal Crafts cutter set, you will receive like two sets of petal cutter, and one is thinner than the other. So the thinner part actually is the petal, and the wider part is the sepal cutter. So you're going to make 2 cuts of the thinner cutter and 3 of the wider cutter. It also comes with a veiner, which you can vein it, of course you can, if you want it to have some texture. However, because it's really small, sometimes after you have thinned out the edges of the petal, that veining gets erased already. So it's up to you if you wanted to do that extra step. For this instance, I probably will not. Just makes my life so much easier because I'm a lazy cake decorator. So I'm going to do 2 of the thin cutter and 3 of the wide ones. So after you've cut all of your petals in your sepal, I'll take a number 30 floral wire, cut it to about 2.5 inch length. Brush it with a little bit of gum glue and thread it on the thicker part of my petal. I would say about 1/4 of an inch. It doesn't have to go all the way through. Just needs to be like secured. And then I'll pinch out the end so it doesn't come off if the gum paste dries. I'll take it to my foam pad and use a ball tool to thin out the edges. And if you think that it's too narrow, you can even use that ball tool and make it wider. Right. Then I'll take my needle tool, and as you can see, I'm going to start from the foam, not on my gum paste, not right here, but from the foam, and draw a line right in the middle. Then I'll take that point and make it pointier by pinching it and then giving it some movement. So it actually looks almost like a leaf. And you can make this like as flouncy as you wanted it. And I don't need a former for it. I'll just lay it on the foam, laying down like this for at least 24 hours. And this, you're going to make 2 petals and 3 sepals per flower. So you're going to have a total of 5 per flower of these things. So for the bud, I'm going to take a little bit of yellow gum paste flour again. And there's really no measurement for the buds. You can make this, as small as you want or as big as you want. Of course, not as big as it should be relative to the size of your flower. And I'll just make like a small teardrop shape gum paste. And since this is a little bit bigger than the petals of my flower, I'll take a number 26 wire and bend it into a hook so it doesn't come off. Maybe a little bit tighter than that. There you go. Brush it with a little bit of my gum glue and thread it. Okay, and so I am going to pinch that to make sure that that hook gets filled with gum paste so it doesn't come off when the gum paste is already dry, and just pinch that end part. Until it sticks to my wire. Now I would take that gum paste and roll it back and forth to make it pointier. And with the help of my needle tool, I'll just make 3 indentations, just like a normal flower bud would look like. And then just give it a little bit of a movement. It doesn't necessarily have to be like so perfect. So that's your bud. And then you just let it dry. Just stick it on a piece of foam and just let it dry. So after your petals are dry, I'm going to take a little bit of clear alcohol or lemon extract, and I'm going to use Hershey Brown petal dust, and my 5-0 brush. And I take some of that clear alcohol and mix it with a little bit of the Hershey Brown Petal Dust. You can also use gel color for this task. It's just that the reason why I like to use the dust is because it's not as shiny, and I don't really like shiny, you know, petals. So here is my dried up petal, and I'll take that brush and just basically paint the tip with that Hershey Brown dust. And there's really no rhyme or reason to this. They're just basically, it's almost like a tiger stripe. So I'm just gonna go back and forth, up and down with my brush. And there's no pattern whatsoever. You're just gonna draw lines almost to that. See? Just like that. So, I'm going to color another one. So I just always color my tip with some of that brown paint. And because it's alcohol, it evaporates really quickly, and this is the reason why you wanted to use alcohol, is so that it doesn't have time to soak up your gum paste and make it soggy, because you don't want that to happen. Alright. Okay, and for the bud that we did earlier, after it's dry, it's basically the same exact thing. You're just going to draw some brown, or paint that tip with some brown petal dust. And I love to use a 5-0 brush. So I'm using a 5-0 brush right here. And you see all that section. I'm just going to paint. I'm just moving, basically moving my brush up and down on that bud. And you can do this on a piece of paper plate as well, if you prefer. And then also the last tip, or the last tip, the bottom part. So, okay. Then remember that really small upper throat part that we did. So we're just going to paint that with a little bit of brown, and I'm just going to do like dots, like really small dots. I'll take my brush and make it into a really fine point and do some really tiny dots in it. And you can even mix it with a little bit of red or purple dots as well. So that's the top part, and that's the bottom part. For the dried up throat, I'm just going to take my purple dust. I'm using African Violet, and I'm just going to dust this whole thing. Just going to use the cap right here. This is actually African Violet. I don't know why it turns blue when it gets into the camera, but I'm just going to take that and basically make the rest of my throat really deep purple. Try not to dust the yellow part with anything. I kind of have dusted the edges with the purple already, but that's okay. Just make sure that, you know, the rest of it you don't dust with purple. And just make it as deep purple as you can. Okay, so now to assemble. So you'll have your 2 petals and the 3 sepals. I think these are the 2 petals. They're narrower. And the 3 sepals and the 2 parts of the throat. This one and where's the other one? And this one. And this flower is really, really tiny. So you want to make sure that you don't lose any of the parts. So the white part of the petal, I'm going to bend it a little bit, slightly upwards. Just slightly. And then I'll take it onto the top of my throat. Like so. Okay. So I'll take half a width of my floral tape. Stretch it so it releases the adhesive. And I wanted to start not at the very tip because it's kind of hard to do that. So I'm going to start like half an inch all the way to the very tip, and I secure the end of my floral tape with my forefinger and basically work my way up to where I wanted to start wrapping all of my stems, to where the gum paste begins and the wire ends. So this way I can let go of it and I know it's going to stay in place. And then I'm going to take one of the petals and bend it. And this is very easy to bend because it's a 30 gauge floral wire, so it will bend right away. And then wrap it twice with my floral tape. Again, do it with the other petal. So it's like a 2 o'clock, 10 o'clock and a 2 o'clock position. Wrap it twice. Okay. So while you're attaching your flower, and sometimes it kind of moves, it will move until you wrap the whole thing with floral tape. Kind of like adjust it to where it should be. Sometimes it has a mind of its own. Okay, there we go. Okay, so one of the sepal has to go above. So I'm going to put it right there. As you can see, every time I add a petal or a sepal, I make sure that I wrap it twice. That way I can let go of it and I know it's going to stay. And I don't have to support that to free up my finger. Or my hand, I should say. Okay. And the last sepal. And really, an orchid only usually has 2 petals. And these are the ones that's positioned in a 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock position. And then the rest are sepals. But then the inside of the sepal kind of looked like a petal. So it kind of looks like a petal, really. But they're actually sepals. And try to position that sepal to where you can see it, because otherwise it will be covered by the throat. So in order for you to hide all these wires now, I'll take my floral tape and put it on a 45-degree angle downwards, and then just wrap the rest of my stem. And putting it at a 45-degree angle will help you cover that wire right away, see? Because if you have it straight, then you will just twirl and twirl and twirl, and you will end up with a really thick stem, which is, I don't really like that. So that's your finished Lemboglossum flower. And here, as you can see, Lemboglossum flowers are normally arranged in a spray, and I'll show you very quickly how you can arrange it into a spray. Just take like a number 26 or a number, maybe a thicker wire, number 22 or number 24 floral wire. Take that bud, and normally the one on the top are the buds. So take that bud and a floral tape, and I'll put that bud like an inch of wire above the floral wire that I have, and just wrap it just like how you would wrap a petal on a flower, and I'll wrap it all the way to where it ends, and just make sure that that whole wire is actually covered with a tape. And then take your petal, and I would bend it, and this one actually has some stem showing, so I would bend it ever so slightly and put it right to where I needed it to be. I'm just going to cover the rest of the wire of the bud that I just put in. And if you have more than one bud, you can put as many buds as you need to. Some floral tape. Stretch it. And then now wrap that stem, and so that you don't really, because you see how in between this stem and that stem there will be like a small hole. So I would take my floral tape and basically cover that hole with it by putting it underneath or over the stem. I'm going to do it again. So just take it over and cover that hole, and then just wrap it all up. And you can add as many flower or as many buds as you can, and that's exactly how it's done. And then you can even add this to the spray that you already have, just by taking it there and wrapping both stems together. But this is how it looks like, and this is our finished flower.